Well, hello and welcome, football fans, to the Squirtle Pay Dirt Pick'em Show, sponsored by Maples, Nix, and Diesel Horse Law Firm. I am your host, Andy Campbell, and as always, I am joined by a good panel of experts here tonight. Our first two guests you'll recognize as the voices of Squirtle, Mark Rogers and Tom Nelson. They bring you the Squirtle games of the week throughout the football season. Mark and Adam Dieselhorst will be calling the Millwood at Heritage Hall game, the 7 p.m. kick on Friday. Tom and Coach Turney will be calling the O'Keene at Winoka game, 7:30 on Friday evening. Welcome back to the show, Sean Meek. Coach Meek was the head coach of the Luther Lions for a number of years before stepping away in the spring this year to new position at Eastern Oklahoma Technology Center. Sean is a Winoka grad, which is one of our games of the week this week, so looking forward to hearing his commentary on the Winoka Railroaders here coming up. We're honored tonight to have Graham Colton as a guest on the show. Graham is a man of many talents, singer, songwriter, operating partner of the Jones Assembly. Most importantly, for purposes of this show, Graham is a 2000 graduate of Heritage Hall. He was the quarterback of the Chargers, led the Chargers to the 1998 state championship. And Graham, just kind of tell everybody what you do now and some of the organizations that you're involved with around the Oklahoma City area.
Well, thanks for having me. I think I'm more nervous for this than any performance I've done lately or big night at the Jones. So this is a tall order, especially if Mark's on. This is tough. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm from Oklahoma City. Went on tour with my band forever, and really knew nothing else other than music after high school. And I was fortunate enough to tour with some great bands and a lot of heroes of mine, bands like Dave Matthews and Counting Crows and Wallflowers, people like that. So it's been a fun ride. Fortunately, getting to move back to my hometown and having something like the Jones Assembly come along, that was a really aggressive kind of a dream project for me. Never thought I would be able to be involved in music in Oklahoma City. I always thought I would have to move to Nashville or LA or New York in order to keep making music, now that I've got two kids and a wife, and didn't really want to be on the road as much as I was. But a place like the Jones Assembly, I think is really special to me and near and dear to my heart, just because it kind of represents where I think our city and our state is in entertainment. And I'm lucky to have a great business partner in Brian Bogert, and we have a lot of fun there. So it's never a dull moment with that place.
Graham, great having you on the show. Looking forward to your commentary tonight on these 8 Pick'em games. Our final guest is always Jacob Dieselhorst, one of the partners at the law firm of Maples, Nix, and Dieselhorst. Jacob, thanks to you and M&D always for your support as a major supporter of Squirtle and the Squirtle Network schools. Before we get into this, a couple of things. Number one, Millwood Heritage Hall is on Thursday night. I could see Mark correcting me there.
I got to know when to go to the game, so I was just don't confuse me.
Fair enough. That is Thursday night, so my fault on that. And also, all of us at Squirtle want to express our deepest condolences to those affected by the events at Choctaw High School last Friday. Mark, I know you were there calling the game with Adam, live, obviously, when that happened. You've had a few days to kind of reflect on that situation. Give us your thoughts on kind of what you've reflected on the last few days.
Well, it was some intense moments there. We really didn't know what was going on, and we said as much on the broadcast. But it wasn't really about targeting anybody at the football game. It was just something that happened at a football game. So I think that hopefully justice will be served on this situation, and we can figure out a way to keep these things from happening. So again, just like I said, hopefully the people from Choctaw and Del City, who are much closer to that situation than we were in the press box, can kind of get over some of the trauma that happened there, and just never expect to be in that situation where we were.
Absolutely. Well, let's dive into this week's Squirtle Pay Dirt games. We'll start in Class 2A with the defending state champion Washington Warriors on the road to face the Sulphur Bulldogs. Washington with an impressive 55-13 win over Bayan last week. Sulphur did not play in week 0, so this will be their first game. Mark Rogers, kick us off. Washington at Sulphur.
Well, I think we have to say before anything else, we got to say something about Jim Dixon, who's the coach at Sulphur. This would have been his 48th year to be on the sidelines for a season opener. Unfortunately, he passed away last year. He's took over as the head coach at Sulphur in 1975. He won 2 state championships there in 347 games as the head coach at Sulphur. And I know that it's not going to feel the same in Sulphur for the home opener without him there. They've got a really good team there. But Washington returns almost everyone from a year ago that on their 2A state championship team. They're loaded. I'd like to see them take on some teams in a little bit higher classes and see how they could fare. Millwood, who we'll talk about a little bit later, also loaded. They beat them in a really classic state championship game a year ago. I think that this one is going to go to Washington. I'm not sure what the line's going to be on the game when Jake talks to us a little bit later, but I would say that this is probably Washington by a couple of touchdowns.
Tom Nelson.
First thing I've got to say is now I can put a name and a face where my son uses my money at the Jones Assembly, and so nice to do that. But Washington, you betcha. Washington answered their question in the backfield. Junior Hudson Howard had 194 yards rushing, scored 4 touchdowns on just 8 carries. They hammered Vian last week, 55-13. Vian's got a great program. They're the favorite in 2A5, and they'd won at least 9 games each year for the past decade or so. But they were a bug on the windshield of the Warriors last week. These two teams have played each of the last 3 seasons. Washington escaped a year ago, 27-25. Sulphur returns almost every starter from a 4-5 team a year ago. They should be better, but not on this night. Washington will be focused on Sulphur, and they will win big.
Coach Meek, you coached in Class 2A for a long time. You have a Washington team here with 2 tight ends who are both going to Power 5 schools. What do you do to defend the Washington Warriors attack, and does Sulphur have a chance on Friday?
Yeah, it's awful tough. We didn't play Washington in the regular season or the playoffs the last 2 years. We always seem to see them at team camps over the summer and things like that. And they're just, everything said about them so far is exactly right. They're absolutely loaded. They got so many weapons. If you try to take one away, they're going to beat you somewhere else. So they're absolutely loaded. I got no doubt they're going to be playing late December. Again, late in the season, probably for a state championship again. Sulphur's always tough. Sulphur always, no matter how much talent they have, they're just always tough. And like, Mark said and Tom said, Vian's a team. It's hard to tell early in the season how good anybody really is after week 0. But, Vian's always a team that's quarterfinal or better in 2A. And it was just, Washington ran through them last week. So I expect Washington to win the game. Sulphur will put up a fight. It was a close game last year. I know Sulphur returns a lot too, but Washington's just loaded. So I'll probably take Washington by a couple touchdowns.
Graham Colton, the spotlight is on you.
Well, you guys said it. Listen, Sulphur's always tough, but I've got on my cheat sheet here loaded with an exclamation point for Washington. So you guys said it all. Anytime you win a title and you return that many kids, regardless of talent, there's just chemistry that just seems to keep, you just pick up right where you left off. So I've got Washington big here.
Jacob Easor.
Mark beat me to the punch on the line. He said a couple touchdowns. I actually have the line at 14.5. Washington, the favorite, playing at Sulphur. Never easy to go to Sulphur and win. That's not you got to take into consideration the tradition there. And you also got to keep in mind that they have a DeMontre Patterson who's come in from Ada, a defensive back and a guy that's going to get the ball a lot for them. I think they think big things for him this year. But I do think Washington is the class of 2A again. Cooper Alexander, I can't wait to see what big things he has in store this season. 6'4", 225, tight end, playing in 2A. That doesn't seem fair. But, I got Washington a 14.5-point favorite. I think they win the game 41-28. So I do think Sulphur covers, and it will be a little better game than people expect because I think Sulphur's a good team this year. They're top 10 team in 3A.
Our next game takes us to Class 3A, where the Kingfisher Yellow Jackets travel to Weatherford to take on the Eagles. Kingfisher, obviously a young team with a tough 20-0 loss to Clinton last week, while Weatherford fell 34-14 on the road at Newcastle in week 0. Tom Nelson, what should we watch for in this game?
This series goes all the way back to 1933, but it was restarted after a 30-year absence 3 years ago. Weatherford won the first 2 in 20 and 21. That stretched their series winning streak to 8 games. Then Kingfisher got it a year ago, 38-21. Weatherford is loaded with experience. They've got 11 returning starters on defense, 7 offensive returning starters. CJ Nixon's a stud. We're going to be talking about receiver and defensive end. He's a D1 talent on both football and basketball. The Jackets have posted 7 straight winning seasons. They're going to be solid again in the future. But like you mentioned, they're a little young this year. They struggled last week, shut out by Clinton 20-0. Weatherford also came up short. They lost to Newcastle 34-14. I think it's going to be Weatherford that gets their first win on Friday night.
Mark Rogers.
I talked to my former roommate, Rob Renshaw, at Weatherford, and he was thoroughly disgusted with the effort of his team last week. So I was asking him, hey, who played well? Is there anybody I can mention? No, there was nothing there. So I think both of these teams are motivated after losing last week. I think Weatherford wins. I just don't think they played very well last week. I think Kingfisher's in a little bit of a rebuilding phase. I do, since Jake is setting lines tonight, I'm not sure if Graham knows this, but Jake is a musical snob. He will go to concerts early in the week, like a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. And I think he set the over-under for Graham's hits at a half. So he might have to answer that a little bit.
Generous. That's generous. That's very generous.
Yeah. Well, I am a Jones Assembly regular. That's for sure. I'm usually upstairs though. I'm usually in the mezzanine.
Oh, you're VIP is what you're saying. You like the mezz. You like the mezz.
I like the mezzanine a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Some nice amenities up there. I appreciate that.
Coach Meek, we'll go to you. Kingfisher at Weatherford.
Yeah, this game that Kingfisher won last year. Both teams struggled in week 0. Both teams struggled offensively in week 0, and the Kingfisher was shut out. And I think Weatherford mustered 14 against Newcastle. Newcastle, I think, is going to be a pretty good team this year in 4A. But both teams struggled. It was a game that Kingfisher won last year. I'm going to go against the grain here. And, well, I'm sure Weatherford's favored, but I'm going to go against the grain and pick the Yellow Jackets to get it done on the road this week.
Graham Colton.
Yeah, I like Weatherford here. I think CJ Nixon is just a tremendous athlete. I think Kingfisher, like rebuilding, I agree. Lacking some skill guys. Close ball game, but I'm taking Weatherford.
Jacob Eastworth.
Yeah, I have the Weatherford touchdown favorite at home. And I want to give a shout out to one of Weatherford's linebackers who might have one of the coolest names in Oklahoma, Steele Chisholm. He's kind of an undersized middle linebacker for Weatherford, but he had 116 tackles last year, and I expect him to match those numbers this year. I do think this is going to be a low scoring game. I have Weatherford winning at 21-14.
Steele Chisholm would also have people at Wheel of Fortune shaking their head for sure. I mean, there's not enough vowels in the last name. But anyway, it would be a tough one.
And I hope I pronounced that right, but
I think you got it.
Cool name.
Amazing name. Sounds like a country star.
Sounds like somebody that should be at Jones Assembly.
Sounds like somebody that is fresh out of rehab and ready to sell some tickets.
Good stuff. Well,
That
be sure to
stays.
tune in Kingfisher YellowJackets.tv for that matchup. The announcer, Michael Swisher, is pretty terrible, but the rest of his crew is as good as it gets. So you can watch that game on Kingfisher YellowJackets.tv. Swish, there's your shout out. The Pick'em game number 3, Oklahoma Bible Academy Trojans started off 1-0 on the season with a 54-8 win at Davenport last week, and now will host the Southwest Covenant Patriots in Enid. OBA won this game convincingly, 48-20 last year, on their way to the state semifinals, but obviously two different teams here in 2023. Tom, this is your hometown. This is your class, 8-man football. Let's give us your thoughts on this matchup.
Half a mile away as the crow flies. That's why I love doing OBA games. It's a home game for me. This is a battle of private school 8-man teams at Commitment Field in Enid. OBA has gone 22-2 the last 2 years, lost in the state semifinals last year. Bodie Boyce, who we talked about every week on this show last year, he's now playing college ball at SWOSU in Weatherford. But stepping into his shoes is Judd Cheatham. We talked about him a lot last year as well. He's the quarterback, had a very efficient night last week as they blasted Davenport 54-8. Judd was 2 for 2 passing for 36 yards, but 14 carries, 202 yards rushing, and 5 touchdowns. The coaches picked Southwest Covenant 4th in B3. OBA's picked to win B2. Southwest Covenant has quite a bit coming back this year, but they're going to be playing their first game. I don't think they can keep up with the Trojans. I think OBA big in this one.
Mark, I don't know how you follow up on that, but give us your thoughts on Southwest Covenant OBA.
Well, I was just thinking the same thing. I got written down Judd Cheatham, Player of the Week, Enid, News and Eagle, bunch of yards. And so Tom covered all that. I'm going to pick OBA too, but I think this is a perfect time with Graham on the show to put a plug in for public schools. And I want to show you guys the scouting report that we had at Blackwell High School in 1988. How do you think we have a chance against private schools with this? I could open it up, and I mean, you could tell we didn't have enough money for a real copier back in the day. So
no comment,
OBA
Mark.
is a private
No
school
comment.
that's rolling. This is another private school on private school game. But anyway, I don't think we beat Cushing. I think we lost 14-13. But anyway, public schools.
That's mimeograph or something. That's mimeograph, isn't it, or something?
Only people that are our age know. Yeah, I don't want, why was it purple? I mean, could it not be black? I have no idea.
Coach Meek, let's go to you. Southwest Covenant at OBA.
Yeah, I picked OBA to win this game. I think they returned quite a bit. I know they're replacing some guys, but I think they went 13-1 last year, something along those lines. Didn't lose till the semifinals, and kind of an odd deal. They got shut out by Sealing, a team they scored 48 points on earlier in the year, something like that. But no, I think they got too much firepower for Southwest Covenant this year. So I pick OBA to roll probably pretty big in this one.
Graham Colton.
Yeah, I got my man Judd winning this one. I mean, with a name like that, come on. I mean, he's going to win the game and take home the girl. He's doing it all. Three for three passing. He's gonna increase his percentage.
I like it. Jake?
You know, OBA, for being one of the smaller schools in Oklahoma, they have one of the, in my opinion, best coaching groups of coaches. Coach Chaot, it's hard to believe that this is his 5th year, I think, there, which it seems like that's flown by. But, he's an offensive juggernaut, and that's going to be the difference in this game. That and OBA's home field advantage, and the fact that they're, one of the top 10 teams in Class B. I've got them a 22-point favorite, and I have them winning 48-30.
Hey, Andy, before you move on, I'm putting my dibs in on this one because I know Adam's watching. 2 weeks from Friday night is OBA hosting Sealing. It's a short drive for me and a matchup of top 5 ranked teams. I want that one. So 2 weeks from this week.
The rematch at Commitment Field. That'll be a fun one to watch for sure.
I did that game. I did the regular season game last year where OBA beat Sealing, and then I didn't get a chance to do the semifinal game, but I did the quarterfinal game where OBA just hammered Dewar last year. So I'm looking forward to seeing round 3 with Sealing and OBA.
Adam and I called the OBA Sealing semifinal game, and there was just a crazy storm. Adam, you remember that? It was like 80-mile-per-hour winds happening right at kickoff. It was kind of a crazy game, and didn't go OBA's way in the semifinals, but we'll see if they can get some revenge here in a couple weeks in Enid. Let's go to pick'em game number 4 from Class B all the way up to Class 5A. The Piedmont Wildcats are 1-0 after a big 52-26 win over Noble last week. El Reno also 1-0, defeating Chickasha 64-24. Mark Rogers, preview this big school matchup for us.
Well, I wait until we have a couple of secular schools outside of the private school community to mention this. I can't believe Sean hasn't talked about the Nightlight being open again in Alva. He was kicked out of there, and maybe now after 25 years, he will be let back in. So congratulations on that, Sean, if you go back to Alva. Where you played some college football. It's a big deal in Northwest Oklahoma. This is a good game. I had Russell Cook on the radio today. Second year at El Reno. They got beat last year by Chickasha in the season opener, and they just hammered Chickasha this year and talked about the motivation that they had. It's a big step up in competition to play Piedmont. I think Piedmont is one of the teams in Class 5A that can make some noise this year to challenge, maybe to get into the semifinals, because I think it's a 2-team race and maybe even a 1-team race with Carl Albert being so good and so loaded, maybe the best team Carl Albert's ever had. I want to think that maybe El Reno's made up enough ground on Piedmont to compete in this game, especially at home, but I'm going to go with the visitors, the Wildcats, to beat the El Reno Indians in a close one. I expect this spread to be less than a touchdown, Jake.
Tom Nelson.
Yeah, both teams picked up convincing wins in 0 week. Piedmont beat Noble 52-26, and as Mark mentioned El Reno beat Chickasha 64-24. Piedmont leads the series 5-4 going back to 2016. A year ago, it was Piedmont 42-8. Malachi Nicholson had 303 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns last week for El Reno against the Chicks. Piedmont as Cannon Wood was huge on both sides of the ball last week. 114 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns on 10 carries. Had 12 tackles on defense. I think Piedmont's defense will control this game, and I like the Wildcats.
I've got a sidebar here before we go any further. Can anyone tell me who Cannon Wood's grandfather is?
No.
It's Bob Wilson. Bob's daughter is
Oh.
Cannon's mother that was the head coach at Putnam North for a lot of years. And so he's got football in his genes.
It's good
I
fact.
think Josh would have known that one.
I understand.
Yeah, I think Josh would have got that one because he used to coach with Coach Wilson in the good old days.
Coach Meek, let's go to you. Piedmont at El Reno.
Yeah, I think both of these teams in 5A are good enough to make some noise. Win a playoff game or two. I think El Reno got a pretty strong ground game, as Tom mentioned. A ton of rushing yards last week. I think it's going to be a really close game. Again, I think both of these teams are going to be good enough to make some noise in 5A as the season goes on. I'll pick Piedmont, kind of echo some of the other picks. I think it'll be a close game. I think both teams' rush and attack will be enough to put some points on the board. But I'll take Piedmont in a close one.
Graham, you probably played Piedmont back in
yeah.
Class 2A. Now they're up to 5A and facing El Reno at El Reno this week. What do you have on this game?
Yeah, we had some tough games against Piedmont. They've always been tough. I agree with Coach Meek. I think it's a close game, but I got Piedmont.
Jacob.
Mark's should be setting the lines, not me. I have a Piedmont a 7-point favorite on the road at El Reno, and I agree with Coach Meek, and I think this is going to be a really good game. I think it's going to be high scoring. I think that there's going to be a lot of yards gobbled up and down the field by both teams. Coach Hall at Piedmont needs to have his kids ready to play because El Reno is much improved from last season. So again, I got Piedmont a touchdown favorite, and I actually have Piedmont eking out a victory, 42-40. I'm calling it. I'm calling a shootout here in El Reno this Friday night.
High scoring game in El Reno. All right, we are halfway home. Pick-em game number 5. We have a Class A versus Class 2A matchup as the Chandler Lions travel to Stroud to take on the Tigers. This will be the first game of the 2023 season for both teams. Tom Nelson, tell us what to watch for in Stroud.
Now you look at the history of this series. Chandler has won the last 3, 57-9, 53-0, and 48-0 in the last 3 seasons. Now, Stroud had a breakthrough year. They won 10 games and made it to the Class A quarters. They've got a lot of talent returning, but Chandler's picked second in tough 2A2, and they're a bigger school enrollment-wise. They're no slouch at all. I don't think that Stroud can make up a 50-point turnaround from the last 2 years. I think it's going to be closer. It has to be. But Chandler still has the horses to get it done.
Mark Rogers.
This is a great rivalry, although it's been dominated recently by Chandler. It was dominated at one time by Stroud. My high school coach, Gary Higgins, played there at Stroud, coached there at Stroud for a little bit. And I got some notes from Lugnut on this game so I could try to hang with Tom as far as information goes. Alec Jackson is their quarterback. He's a big kid that last year maybe struggled a little bit of times, but he's been being looked at Oklahoma State right now, and he's pretty good. I do have something from the archives here. This is a guy named Wes Welker. I don't know if any of y'all have heard of him, but probably the reason why Graham is here tonight. This is a picture from the Polo Bowl when Heritage Hall played Cassidy. It's been a long time back in the day. And I said on TV one time, the loser didn't get to drive the W's to school the next day. That seemed to be pretty popular with the rest of people out there. So that team was pretty good at Heritage Hall, and they worked over Cassidy, which is a great rivalry. But unlike Stroud and Chandler, they don't play anymore. So rest in peace.
It's a shame.
I like how Mark is bringing prop comedy to the show now. I'd say he's invested.
Mark's really
I gotta hang with you. I gotta hang with you now.
Yeah.
I want to know who Mark's been talking to know I got kicked out of the nightlight. I want to know.
He is doing his homework.
All right, Coach, go to you, Chandler at Stroud.
Yeah, so this is a big Lincoln County rivalry. A lot of bragging rights on the line for Lincoln County folks over in Chandler and Stroud. I've had the opportunity to coach against Chandler quite a few times over the years. I think Tom probably kind of hit the nail on the head here. Big a rivalry. It's both towns gonna be fired up. Both teams gonna be fired up. Going to give great effort. I mean, it's a fun game to watch. I just think Chandler's probably a little bit too much. I think the depth is going to be an issue for Stroud. Chandler's got the ability to play multiple guys up front on both sides, offensively and defensively, kind of platoon some guys in and out and on the line of scrimmage. So I think ultimately Chandler's just going to wear them down, probably a little bit too much for him. I do think Stroud's going to have a good year. I think they're probably going to make another push in Class A, probably playing on Thanksgiving or later. But Chandler's just size and depth and athleticism is going to be a little bit too much for Stroud. So I'll probably pick Chandler by 2 or 3 touchdowns.
All right, let's go to Wes Welker's quarterback.
Right. My backup singer, by the way, Wes was. Not really. It's the one that he couldn't do. He couldn't sing. He was a terrible singer. Alec Jackson, dual threat quarterback, returning. I've got it written down here with Chandler, just physical, capital letters. And I think Chandler takes this one. But yeah, another great game.
Jacob Eastworth.
Yeah, so Stroud, I was looking at the preseason rankings and actually the Dale Oklahoma rankings. At least the Dale Oklahoma crew is high on Stroud this year. They got them ranked 3rd right now in Class A. And obviously it's probably because they have so many starters coming back from one of the best seasons they've had in a while. Chandler, every season, they're going to put a good product on the field and play hard-nosed, tough football. I got Chandler an 8.5-point favorite going on the road to Stroud. And I think it's going to be a good football game. I have Chandler winning the game 30-21. And what was my deciding factor in this game was how much I love Highland cottage cheese. Because if you go to Chandler, you drive by the Highland plant. Has everybody had their cottage cheese before? It's just unbelievable. And their French onion dip. Like I could just live on that. So yeah, that's the difference in this game is dairy products.
Jake, you got to make your way over to Chandler for the ice cream festival sometime, man.
Hey, I've heard that's
This may get censored by the Illuminati, but when we were at Channel 5, we did the shows in Chandler one day and toured that Highland Dairy plant, and they told us, we just make cottage cheese and we just put the labels on it. So ours is the same as the discount. It's just the same. So I hate to blow your mind there, Jake, but if you like the Highland, you like the cheap stuff too.
That I do not believe that. That's fake news.
This is never going to make the show.
Yeah.
Well, hey, the Chandler Lions are a new Squirtle Network school, so welcome Chandler and the Lions fans to Squirtle. You guys can watch this matchup on ChandlerLions.tv or also on Squirtle.tv and get the link from there. And then we will have Jeff Matheny and Tony Wilson, a.k.a. Lugnut, on the call for the Chandler Lions on Friday night in this matchup. Mark, I know it's someone that you're well acquainted with.
That's correct. Lugnut's a man of many varied business interests, some legal, some illegal.
All right,
the name for it.
We've been through 5 pick'em games. Let's go to our 6th, which is Blanchard Lions at Noble. We just mentioned Noble had a disappointing start to their season with the loss at Piedmont, but the Bears have a chance to rebound this week as they travel to 4A Blanchard to take on the Lions. Mark, we'll start with you.
Okay, look at this stud right here. That is Mr. Graham Colton.
Look at that jersey.
Look
at those shoulder pads.
He's got one hand on the ball. He's looking down the field, and then look at this poor Blanchard guy here. Look at those uniforms. I mean, those are maybe the worst I've ever seen. This is another example of private school versus public school. They just said, "Hey, just put our name on it and a number, and we're good." And so look at Graham. We took a shot at him earlier, but in his own right, absolutely just as much of a stud as Wes Welker, but he chose music field over going on to play professional football. So I'm going to say with that Blanchard is glad they're not playing Heritage Hall in this game, and I'm going to give them probably a 15-point win over Noble in the season opener.
Tom Nelson.
Well, first of all, I'm going to take a moment here to politic, Graham, about at the Jones Assembly. We need more stuff like Hall & Oates, Little River Band,
I like it.
Stuff from the 70s and 80s that I can vibe with.
Okay. So Michael McDonald, maybe a little bit of a little bit of
Michael
Toto.
Tom, the captain of the Yacht Rock night.
Yeah,
I am
let's go full yacht rock. I agree.
I
Love it.
am captain of the Yacht Rock brigade. I definitely am. So, but
There's a great band coming to Jones Assembly, Sylvan Esso, which is very much in that genre. You would really dig them. I mean, they're a little bit more electronic than that, but I'm kidding. They're not. You would like them,
Tom's got Sylvan Esso in his playlist for sure. Absolutely.
Oh boy! Well,
right after Christopher Cross.
There you go. Actually saw Christopher Cross last year at the Tower Theater because he was down there. So, but and I went and saw.
We got something for you, Tom. You should come out. We should anytime you want to come. Have you heard of Warren Zeiders? You know who he is?
No.
Warren Zeiders is blowing up. He is. At the Jones we get these acts that maybe aren't ready for the arena yet, and they're going to Dallas the next night, or they're Kansas City the night before, and they're playing a venue twice our size, and somehow we get them. And Warren, I booked him right after Christmas, and he had kind of had some traction on him. But if you go to his Instagram right now, you'll see him. He's playing for 20,000 people, and he's contractually obligated to still play the Jones September 28th. So we're gonna have him at our little place. So if you want to come, Tom, you can be my guest. Any of you guys can be my guest.
Tom only has MySpace. He doesn't have Instagram.
Still rocking MySpace. I like it, Tom.
Well,
keep it real.
Look at this. My son, he always says, "Hey, we're going to Jones Assembly to see some group I've never heard of, but
yep.
I'm sure they're popular." So I appreciate that. So,
anytime, Tom. Anytime.
There you go. All right, Blanchard at Noble. This was a good one last year. Noble beat Blanchard 34-27. But after that game, the team seemed to go different directions. Blanchard started off the season last year 0-2 before they won 8 of 10 the rest of the way, made it to the second round of the playoffs. Noble went the other direction, finished 5-5 and out of the playoffs. Blanchard returns a lot from last year, including one of the best quarterbacks in the state in Carson Cooksey. He's got a full complement of weapons around him that he played with last year. He's got a lot of confidence. Noble was picked by the coaches in the bottom half of 5A1. They lost their opener to Piedmont, as we said earlier, 52-26. Having a game under their belt might be a slight advantage, but Blanchard has been waiting a long time for this one. I think Noble has won the last 3 years, but I think Blanchard's going to get it done this week.
Hey, Graham, you just invited Tom Nelson to the Jones Assembly. I understand that you may have some tickets for some of our viewers out there to an upcoming show at the Jones Assembly.
I do. Well, we've got 2 great shows coming up this September. We've got Sylvan Esso, as you guys mentioned. They're we get a lot of these acts that either they're from Europe or they're in different genres, and we're really proud of that. Just because before the Jones came along, in my opinion, you saw a lot of country in Oklahoma, of course, because it's kind of like fish in a barrel and people like it. But a band like Sylvan Esso, they'll be in Red Rocks on this tour and it'll be sold out, and then they'll come to the Jones. So we're going to give 2 tickets to Sylvan Esso. I got to remember when that is, but it's mid-September. So happy to do a pair of them. And you can give them away anytime, any way you'd like. Most enthusiastic sports fan, or however you want to do it. Let's give them away.
I've got to ask real quick. How do you spell Sylvan Esso, and can I find their CDs anywhere?
You mean a compact disc
or an album?
Yeah, vinyl. You like vinyl, right, Tom?
Exactly.
Vinyl's back, man. Vinyl's back. Yeah, you can get their vinyl anywhere. Sylvan, Sylvan, Esso.
I wouldn't have got that.
No,
I'm going to check it out.
No, they're cool. They really are cool. And a lot of these electronic kind of alternative acts, they bring all this stuff with them, and the lighting and just what they put in our little venue is incredible. It's like a Kiss concert.
Kind of like Oingo Boingo and Devo, something like that.
I would say it's exactly the same, Tom. Oingo Boingo and Sylvan Esso. Probably the first time they've been compared. I like it. Let's go with it.
The first person to share the Squirtle Pay Dirt Pick'em Show on their Facebook page and comment Sylvan Esso gets the tickets. Graham, you good with that?
I'm great with that.
Perfect. We will reach out to that.
Gold School Radio here right now.
Giving
away 5.
It's September the 13th, by the way. It's going to be a hot Wednesday night.
September 13th. So share the Squirtle Pay Dirt Pick'em Show on your Facebook page and comment Sylvan Esso. You will get the tickets. let's get this back to a little bit of football. Sean Meek, Blanchard versus Noble.
Yeah, so both of these teams, just not teams I see a whole lot. I mean, being 4A and 5A when I was coaching, it wasn't like we crossed a lot of film or traded film or anything like that. I know last year, pretty close game. Noble won last year. Again, don't know a whole lot about either team. I know Noble's played, Blanchard hasn't. I expect it to be a close game. I'm going to pick Noble just for the simple fact, other than they've played a game. That may make a difference. It may not. Who knows? Blanchard may have some week one hiccups here and there, just being the first time out the gate. So it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to pick Noble. Maybe probably in a little bit of an upset. I'm sure Blanchard's probably the favorite, but I'll pick Noble to win the game.
Graham Colton.
Did you say that Blanchard has a kid named Carson Cooksey? That's legit. I'm going Blanchard.
Yeah.
Love that. That's almost better than Jet. I dig it.
I think Blanchard gets a little extra in the food matchup of Kendall's versus the Burrito Grill. You're giving Blanchard probably a 6-point edge there.
Absolutely.
Or excuse me, Noble a 6-point edge.
I think Noble has the edge there on the picks for sure. One of my favorite Facebook pages is Kendall's, where they take a picture of the guy who tries to complete the chicken fried steak challenge. And it never really turns out very well for those guys. It seems like they have about 4 bites and they're done. So then they get a picture of with a loser cup afterwards. It's a great Facebook follow. All right, Jacob Horse. Let's go to you. Blanchard versus Noble.
Yeah, isn't Noble one of the funnest teams? They always, like last season, but some of those games they played, those like 62-59, just wild, exciting football. And they also have one of the best Squirtle crews, hometown crews calling their games. They do a great job in Noble. Their broadcasting, their production quality, everything. So kudos to those guys. And they're also such homers. So if you're watching Pay Dirt Friday night and you happen to flip over to the Noble game and there's a call they don't like, then get ready because that ref's going to get lit up. But Blanchard's one of the teams to beat in 4A this year. I mean, they're a solid football team, and playing at home, even though Noble does have a game under their belt, I've got Blanchard an 11.5-point favorite in this game, and I have Blanchard winning 45-34.
Blanchard also a new Squirrel Network school, so welcome to Blanchard, and thanks to Jeff Craig and those good people over at Blanchard for joining the Squirrel Network. You can watch that matchup, BlanchardLions.tv and NobleBears.tv, either one. All right, guys, we have 2 more games left, and these are both the Squirrel games of the week for this week. Our first matchup, Winoka and Okeene. As we go back to 8-man football, the Class B Okeene Whippets are 1-0 on the season after a big 56-30 win over Pond Creek Hunter last week and now travel to Class C Winoka. The Railroaders are also 1-0 after a 44-6 win over Balco Forgan last week. By the way, shout out to Sammy Cottrell, the cheerleading coach there at Okeene, doing a great job with her girls. Fairview alum. Tom, you're our 8-man expert, and you'll be calling this matchup on Friday, so give us a preview.
Well, I know that Mark thinks I'm a wuss, but I'm not going to make a pick on this one because I have to go to Winoka on Friday night.
That's prima donna. It's like Kirk Herbstreit. That's weak action. There you go. I got to go to Winoka. The thing is, I've had the experience of going to Balco Forgan the week after I picked against them, and they made me look bad. So I've got that in the back of my mind. But I will tell you why I picked this game. I told Adam, here's the game I want to do. It's all kinds of great storylines here. Tanner Allen left Winoka after leading them to the state championship game a year ago. He took on the new challenge at Okeene. Okeene has a lot of potential. They got great facilities, great support. They love their football. They're playing with schools their size in Class B now after they moved down a few years ago. They got great tradition. And Coach Allen's staff includes the legendary Whippet head coach, Jeff Wardlaw. They won a few state championships back in the day with Coach Wardlaw, and he's in the sidelines again. They got off to a good start with a 56-30 win over Pond Creek Hunter. At Winoka, John Barnes is keeping the train on the tracks in Winoka, ranked number 2 in Class C this week. They beat Balco Forgan 44-6. Some players to watch, and here is why I'm glad I picked this game. Kid named Luke Swartwood. We talked about him a year ago.
Another great name.
Yeah, another great name. He played for Canton. He was a preseason all-state pick in Class B for Canton last year. he transferred to O'Keene. He was a preseason All-Stater a year ago, threw for over 1,300 yards. He rushed for over 1,100 yards, scored 31 touchdowns last year for the Tigers. Last week in their opener, he goes for 218 on the ground, scored 5 touchdowns. They got a good quarterback in Brody Jenkins, had 156 yards rushing, a couple of rushing touchdowns and a passing touchdown. So I think O'Keene is a different team. They were getting good last year. I think they're going to be a lot better this year. For Waynoka, you've got Dason Cunningham, Landon Seeger, Colin Bouchard. They combined for 348 rushing yards last week, also 5 touchdowns. Waynoka's top priority is stopping the run. They're going to have their hands full. I watched some video of this Luke Swartwood kid from last year and in the first game. He's a stud. He'll break kickoff returns on you. I think this game's going to be close enough to go the distance. I think it will be in doubt in the fourth quarter. Not going to pick a winner, but I think the future is bright for both these teams.
I'll pick a winner with a German food in Winoka. You really can't beat that. So they had the line there in Winoka on the food picks. Mark Rogers.
Man, we should have got Tom on the Republican debate the other night. He'd have been fantastic. And I know that he's afraid to pick against Waynoka because he would get body slammed by Meek. There's no doubt about it. That's why he's clear on that side of the screen over here. So I'll say what he's afraid to say. O'Keene's going to win this game. Waynoka lost a lot last year, but when Tanner Allen leaves Waynoka to go to O'Keene, there's got to be a little bit of a reason there. He's a great head coach. I talked to some other head coaches in Northwest Oklahoma. They talked about how good Allen is. So I think O'Keene's going to be kind of maybe a team that's under the radar in a really, really competitive Class B. And beating Pond Creek was a nice win for them last week. Winoka's got a lot of tradition, and Sean can attest to that. And they've got great German food, which I hope to get there someday to eat. I'm still mad at Ben Buckland because he suckered me into a race at the State Fair Speedway one time, and he lapped me, and it was really embarrassing. So Winoka loses to O'Keene.
Hey, speaking of food, be sure to check out the food blog by Coach Hardaway. It was just put out today on the Sportal Facebook page about the steakhouse in Morrison. Best salad Coach Hardaway had all summer. Best steak Coach Hardaway had all summer. So,
are we getting soft? What are we talking about? The best salad? Nobody cares about the best salad.
I said
what is wrong? John Hardaway. What is John Hardaway didn't say anybody had the best salad? That's ridiculous.
He did. But the thing is, that salad has feta cheese on it, which is a no-go for me. I won't touch goat cheese.
Yeah, I texted Coach Hardaway, Mark, and I asked him the same question. Why are we talking about salad on the Sportal Food blog? But it's on there. So
all right.
There you go. There's a plug for the food blog. Okay, Winoka grad Sean Meek. Let's hear it.
All right, so just some Winoka facts and history here, just to make the show a little better. So yeah, shout out to Cafe Bonhoff there in Winoka. Dieter Dorner is the owner of Cafe Bonhoff in Winoka. Great German food if you're ever looking for a place to go get some German. And Mark, my dad is a 1964 Winoka graduate with Benny Buckland. So the voice of the Oklahoma City Blazers back in the day. He also is he comes home every April, does the Sunday announcing for the Winoka Rattlesnake Roundup. If you guys are ever bored on a Sunday in April and want to go watch that. So yeah, my dad graduated with Benny. He's a good guy. And also, all of you guys are pronouncing it wrong. The Y is silent. Okay, it's Winoka, not Waynoka. So just giving you a hard time. But no. So on the game itself, it's been so cool to watch kind of the resurgence of Winoka football over the last 5 or 6 years, get back to competing at a level where they're, competing for state championships again. Tanner Allen, obviously, we've already talked about at O'Keene now. I said this 3 or 4 years ago, some guys I played with and guys I went to high school with, that he's a phenomenal coach. He does a great job. Offensively, they were doing some stuff that was really hard to stop. Obviously had some athletes to do it with, but he's a phenomenal coach, does a great job. So he's going to have O'Keene rolling in no time. At the same time, I'm a railroader through and through. Those guys have went third. This group of seniors have gone 33-6 the last 3 years. They're going to be a group that wins 40-plus games in their high school career. They're going to the third round or better every year with the state runner-up finish last year. I went and watched that Class C title game last year at SNU against Tipton, and Tipton had that stud running back that was just unstoppable. That dude would have been in the backfield for Bixby, and I'm not exaggerating that at all. He was an absolute stud. But with that said, I'm going to pick Winoka to win this game. It will be close. O'Keene, again, Coach Allen's going to have them rolling in no time. Winoka's still got plenty of firepower left. Some of the names you mentioned with Landon Seeger and Dason Cunningham and those guys was pretty cool because I went to high school with those guys' dads. So it's kind of neat to watch them play, and now their son's playing. But Winoka's still got plenty of firepower in Class C to be playing late. into the season, playing for probably semifinals or finals again. But gonna be a close game. I'm gonna pick the Railroaders to win though.
Graham, Colton, Winoka, and O'Keene.
What's O'Keene's mascot? What'd you say they were?
They're the Whippets.
Come on, the Railroaders and the Whippets. I mean, you're in like
Great one.
Wampus Cat territory. I mean, that's just tremendous. I'll go with Coach Meek. I like Winoka.
Jacob Easthorst.
I have a quick funny story about O'Keene. So I was driving to meet Adam and my Uncle Mitch a couple weeks ago to go fishing on striper fishing on Kent Lake, and I took a wrong turn somehow because I was on the phone with a client or something, and I literally was in a town and I didn't know if I was in Watonga or O'Keene. I literally didn't know. I was like, where am I? But anyway, that's funny. But O'Keene, Fairview, O'Keene, so many guys from O'Keene, from those championship teams you're talking about. Chris Carbs, who was a great quarterback there, who now is a great golfer at Oak Tree, and probably the best poker player in our poker group that plays at Oak Tree once a month. And then I got to give a shot to Jay Jansen too, who's just a freak at O'Keene, and then he carried it on to the intramural fields at OSU and only got ejected every other game. And so, but yeah, it's good to hear O'Keene's got a good football team again. And I think this is going to be a heck of a game. Winoka, is a powerhouse in Class C. O'Keene is a up and coming powerhouse in Class B. It's an 8-man game, right? It's going to be up and down the field. I got Winoka an 8-point favorite at home, and I got Winoka winning 48-44.
Wow,
Jacob.
I'm on an island, which is someplace Jake knew he wasn't when he was lost between Watonga and O'Keene. And it's impressive that he can double bill a client on the phone while going to rake in a bunch of crappie. Well done. Well done. That's impressive. That's good stuff.
And by the way, I did have like the best day too on the lake. That was a great day, Adam. We had a blast, didn't we?
Yeah.
Had the best.
Andy,
The best
don't
tour
go
guides.
don't go down with his improper billing practices. Okay, you'll be fine. Just do you.
He's got to pay for the mezzanine tickets at Jones Assembly somehow. I mean, we've got to get some income into the firm. So
There you go.
I'll tell you what, one more thing about this game. What would blow you away when you think about the tradition that O'Keene has, they've not had a winning season. It's been almost a decade since they've even had a winning season at O'Keene. They're playing 11-man shorthanded with 18 players there for a long time and still playing pretty well, but just couldn't get over the hump. They go to 8-man, and it takes a couple of years to get your feet wet and get to playing well in 8-man football, I guess, unless you're Morrison going the other way. But I think O'Keene, once they get it rolling now, and I think they'll be hard to stop because they've got the parents that are really into it. They got great facilities. O'Keene's a great little sports town.
And don't forget the baby blue jerseys. I mean, you just can't go wrong with the baby blues.
I was the first team that I followed when I first moved to Oklahoma, was doing radio out of Enid, was the O'Keene Lady Whippets going to state in basketball about 15, 20 years ago. And then I was the play-by-play on those back-to-back state championship teams for football in 08 and 09 or something like that. It's so great to see Jeff Wardlaw still coaching in O'Keene. So
Coach Wardlaw coached the K101 Classic Bowl in 2003, and I played in that. And guys, I got to know him. Coach Wardlaw is awesome. He's a great guy. He does a good job.
If you see picture a football coach in the dictionary, his face is there. I mean,
yeah, he's an all timer. Yeah,
really looking forward to that game with Tom and Coach Turney on the call on Friday. Our final game this week and our second squirrel game of the week. I know a lot of people are looking forward to this matchup. Millwood was the state runner-up last season in 2A. Heritage Hall, the 2022 state champion in 3A, two of the winningest programs certainly over the last 15 to 20 years or so in the state. Mark, I know you're calling this game. Features 2 OU commits, one for each team, and several other players will be playing at the next level. Give us a preview of this matchup on Thursday night.
Well, unlike Tom, I'm not afraid to make a pick, which I will do in this game. It's been a big night for me because finally, after all these years, I got Graham Colton's cell phone. So I will be calling him all the time to ask him for tickets to the Jones Assembly, maybe free meals, frozes, you name it. And
let's go. Pimento cheese. It's all you, baby.
I don't know here how in the world that Graham wrestled that state championship trophy away from Wes Welker, but he is hoisting that thing above his head. Very, very impressive. This was a great game. And Heritage Hall beat Tishomingo, I think. Is that right, Graham?
Yeah,
That's right. So Graham was not letting go of that trophy.
I think Wes had so much fake AstroTurf stuck in his arm after that game. That field was just like a concrete, patch of just all that old fake AstroTurf. I remember that, and it was just raked all over his arms.
Yeah.
I was perfectly clean, by the way. I didn't, I just stood there.
Graham turned to him shortly after and said, "Let me hold this trophy. You're going to catch passes from Tom Brady in the Super Bowl."
That's right.
So I know Jacob and Adam caught a bunch of great crappie, but Heritage Hall has a great bass on their team, and Andy Bass, the quarterback. I think this is going to be a good game. I really do think it's going to be one of the best games that we see all season long. Millwood is loaded, extremely talented, but I think I've got to go with Heritage Hall in the bigger class. But I'm interested to see what Jake thinks is the point spread on this game, because I think it's going to be close. And Tom, I'm not afraid of what happens, but I'm going to go with the home team. I'm going to pick Heritage Hall in a very close game.
Tom Nelson.
By a 50-yard Wes Welker field goal.
There you go. The first thing I want to say is I'm really glad I'm doing the show today, because I got a feeling my musical horizons may be expanded after tonight. I'm looking forward to becoming, maybe my son will be dragging me to the Jones Assembly to watch some of these acts. Although I will say, a couple of years ago, I sat in the parking lot at Zoo Amp listening to, I dropped off my kids. It was Paramore and Foster the People. Had no idea who it was, but I thought they sounded pretty good from the parking lot. But anyway,
that's a cool show.
So,
Haley Williams.
Yeah, that's
Did
a cool
you
show.
Graham?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not. I did not.
Well, I thought I was pretty cool that I could drop the Paramore for the People thing in there, and I kind of like 21 Pilots too. I'm not too old to admit that, but okay. Millwood at Heritage Hall, number 1 in 3A, hosting number 1 in 2A, best game in the state, talent all over the field. CJ Turnbull, Tank Levine, Jaden Nickens for Millwood, Andy Bass, and all the talent they have at Heritage Hall. Andy Bass going to OU. Last year, Hall won 35-28. It's the opener for both, so both teams have been looking at this one all spring and all summer. Millwood leads the series 10-7 going back 52 years, but the Hall has won the last 3, and 2 of those convincingly. It's a tough pick. Heritage Hall won on the road last year. They are the bigger school and the most competitive class in the state. They're playing at home. I'm going to take the Hall, but I think it'll be pretty close. Good game. I'll be watching it tomorrow night.
Sean Meek.
Yeah, phenomenal game. Everything you guys have just said. So I was able to see Millwood in the spring when I was still at Luther. I was kind of helping them through spring ball and things like that. I went to camp, and got to see Millwood. And I've seen them on tape a ton too, but they just got studs all over the field. The Nickens kid is an absolute animal. And I know Heritage Hall's got a lot of the same guys. I haven't seen them with my eyes, but I know they got a lot of the same guys, Power 5 guys. So phenomenal game. I would say both teams, you guys, not saying anything anybody doesn't already know, but they're both favorites in their class. I'm going to pick Millwood to be, probably playing for a state championship again in 2A, and Heritage Hall is probably playing for it in 3A. So no surprise to anybody. Both teams are phenomenal. Going to be a great game. But I'm going to pick Heritage Hall again until Millwood beats them, and they haven't recently. I'm going to keep picking Heritage Hall to get it done.
All right, Heritage Hall alum.
All right, man. What's cool about this game is Heritage Hall hadn't played Millwood until the first, in '98 when we played them my junior year, and we really didn't know what team we had until that game when we beat Millwood. I mean, these guys, you talked about Rashawn, and you had Elbert Craig, and you just had studs. I mean, we walked in to that game, and it was when we beat that team, we had no business beating that team, right? But it was just the moment where that season turned magical for us, and it really was, I think, a turning point in the entire program. So it's just cool to see that this game has really turned into a rivalry, because it is just incredible athletes all over the field. I mean, I got to go with Heritage Hall, Coach Bogert. I mean, this kid Andy Bass is legit. I mean, I played with Wes Welker. He and I have been best friends together since we were 5. I've never seen an athlete like Wes, even when we played T-ball together. But this kid, Andy Bass, I got a man crush on this kid. I mean, it's unbelievable. So I'm really, really excited for this game. What a fun environment. Just so cool how both schools, both programs, such high energy. Can't wait, but I got the Chargers.
Jacob Easorst.
Yeah, best game of the week, best game of the season so far. What a great way to start off week one and high school football in Oklahoma. Then have the best team or the number one team in Class 2A. No disrespect to Washington because they're right there, but lace them up against the number one team in Class 3A, Heritage Hall, under the lights at Heritage Hall. Like everybody's already said, incredible D1 talent on the field. I can't wait to see. Levine, the North Texas signee linebacker, and Bass, hook up. I have a feeling those two are going to get to know each other Thursday night on that game. And Jaden Nickens, he's going to be a star at the D1 level, I think, at OU, and OU's lucky to get him. And I don't want to. I have to mention CJ Turnbull too, because another just electric football player. Just going to be an awesome atmosphere. High school football game. I got Heritage Hall, an 8-point favorite. Obviously, I'm going to give away a little tip here. I give 6 points to the home team when I do my lines. When I draw up my lines, I give 6 points to whoever the home team is, even if they're a big underdog. I still give them 6 points for home field. So this is going to be a close game, but I do have Heritage Hall winning the game 34-28.
All right. Well, that wraps up our 8 pick'em games of the week. We had to have a quick bonus segment with Graham Colton. Graham, I can't get you out of here without asking this question. You've talked a lot tonight about the 98 Heritage Hall team. You have not talked about the 1999 Heritage Hall football team.
Oh, this is dirty.
This is tough.
I've got to bring this
Dirty.
up because it's a discussion that some guys from Fairview have fairly often. I'll let them remain nameless.
Okay, got it. Copy that.
Heritage Hall is ranked number 1 all season. Defeats Fairview, I want to say, with 41-7 or something like that in the regular season at Heritage Hall. Fairview gets hot in the playoffs, makes the run to the state championship game. Heritage Hall does not make a run to the state championship game. Graham, what happened to Heritage Hall in 1999? And the real question, if Heritage Hall did make it back to the state championship game, how many points does Fairview win by in the rematch?
Nice. Well played. Well, what happened is when we went to Davis, which I think was either the quarterfinals or the second round, I was on defense. That's how decimated we were. So that's covered was pretty dry. Man, it's like anything else. I mean, you see it all the time. We really probably shouldn't have won it in 98 and should have won it going away our senior year. We had so much talent. We had so much chemistry and, got the injury bug, and we had never been tested that whole season. And the minute we got tested on the road in that atmosphere, we were pushing. I still, it haunts me, that game, because we had that magical game the year before at home against Davis that was really just legendary in terms of just, they called it the miracle on 115th Street. And then we go to Davis and we're much better, but it's like everything else. We just got hit in the mouth. We had injuries. I started playing corner and the rest is history. I mean, it just was one of those things. Now, I think if we would have gotten to meet up again, I don't know, those Diesel Horse boys are pretty talented. I think they would have taken it to us.
Fair enough. Well,
It was their year.
Graham's right. The 98 Davis Heritage Hall game is absolutely one of the best high school games that's ever been played in this state. Wes won it with a long field goal.
Recovered an onside kick.
Zach Womack, the quarterback, was a strength and conditioning coach in NCAA and ran for 400 yards, I think, that night, or a ton. But he's right. We could be here another 50 years, and there's not going to be many games that are compared to that one.
It was magical. I mean, it really was. Even being a part of it, it was just like, what the hell just happened? I mean, it was unbelievable.
I got to tell you, though, as a visiting team, it's hard to go into Davis and win. A few years ago, I was chasing Hennessy down there, and they put us in the visiting press box with no power. I had to go to Dollar General, buy a $5 lamp, and duct tape it to the roof of the press box to have a light to call the game.
Just a killer atmosphere. I mean, just the coolest. And it was it was just it just wasn't our night. And still to this day, I think about that game. I really do. Really do. That's the great thing about high school football. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's the, you know, these kids that get to play this sport in Oklahoma and how much passion there is. And now, especially where how the game has evolved and, you know, with technology being able to have these kids be able to show their talent, and it's just incredible. I mean, it really is fun for me to see, not just with my alma mater, but just the sport in general of where it's gone. Cause it's special. It's special in Oklahoma. It was special for me, and be able to line up next to your best friends. It's the greatest thing in the world.
It's special for us here at Squirtle to be able to call those games and bring all the action to all the fans. Really appreciate Graham Colton and Coach Meek coming on. Graham, I had to rib you a little bit. I got Coach Meek and Mark earlier today for their Cardinals that are having a rough summer for the boys in St. Louis. So I kind of had to come after Graham a little bit just to kind of get there. But appreciate Graham entertaining my Fairview question. Had to throw in a little jab there for the 99 season. So thank you again for joining us tonight on the Squirtle Pay Dirt Pick'em Show, sponsored by Maples, Knicks, and Diesel Horse. Be sure to tune into Squirtle.tv so you can watch the games we just discussed, or Squirtle Pay Dirt, which will be on this week as well, where it's kind of like the NFL Red Zone, where you can see all the touchdowns, all the big plays from these games. We'll be back next week with new guests and 8 great games. We'll see you then.
Andy, can you not grow some facial hair like everybody else on the panel? What's going on?
Someday when I hit puberty, Mark, hopefully
Good luck.
yeah.